Hi, my name is Frank Wagner. I'm running for California State Assembly, District 72 this year. And I'd like to talk about recycling and the environment stuff real quick and the hypocrisy on it. You're told to recycle cardboard, plastic, that stuff. But you're not told that you can fix a refrigerator that's not cooling the refrigerator part, the freezer that's not freezing anymore, with simple parts. Instead, you're encouraged to toss the refrigerator and pay a hazardous waste disposal fee for it, and then buy a new refrigerator, which costs, $1,000, $2,000, and they don't blink about that. Well, in my experience with my refrigerators, only 3 parts have been commonly going bad. One is, this is what's called an air damper. First I'll explain. In a refrigerator, the modern ones, the air from the freezer gets circulated into the refrigerator when the refrigerator determines that it's not cold enough. This is an air damper which opens up between the refrigerator and the freezer, allowing airflow from the freezer to the refrigerator. If this fails and it does not open the little levers here, whatever you want to call it, dampers, then you can't get air to the refrigerator to cool it down. Your freezer is working fine, but the refrigerator's not. To replace this, you have to typically open the freezer, take everything out of the freezer, remove all the shelves in the freezer. Then on the back of the freezer, there's a metal panel. It's anywhere from 4, 6, maybe 8 screws total. That when you remove that, then you have access to the freezer side of this, where you can push these little plastic snaps on, and it pulls out of the freezer, and you can remove it from the refrigerator. And then you push it back in, connect the cable, boom, you're repaired. The other thing that goes wrong is a little thermostat. In your freezer, there's a evaporator coils, which looks like a little radiator. That cools your freezer. If it continues cooling and moisture from the air solidifies on the coils, then air can't move through it to cool your freezer. It's basically just a block of ice. And this is the part that sort of regulates that. It turns on the defrost heater. It's like a U-shaped metal thing that's within the coils. If that goes out, then it cannot heat up to melt the ice on the coils to allow air movement to, again, allow the freezer to freeze. Your refrigerator typically turns on and off this fairly regularly, like every couple days or week, depends on the refrigerator and your ambient air moisture and how much you open and close the refrigerator. And then, but this part cost, on my refrigerator, was $5. My neighbor paid $30 to pick it up from a local appliance place, and it just quick disconnects. So the hardest part was removing food from the freezer, taking out the shelves and a couple screws, and that was it. This part cost anywhere from $56 to $200, depending on the refrigerator, and it's super easy to replace. This, to me, should be easy to replace if they designed it properly, where you didn't have to get to the freezer. If it was just like a cartridge, like a water filter, you could easily just unplug it, put in a new one, you're good to go. This thing, they should just have a little access panel where you can get to it easily to replace it instead of having to take everything out of the freezer. The other part, the defrost heater, that's a little bit harder to replace because you got to pull it out a little bit and possibly bend something and bend it back. That I've only seen it happen a couple times on one of my neighbor's refrigerators and another person. But between all the pieces, it's not that expensive. And each one of these could actually could be potentially checked. If you disconnected this and just connected the wires directly together, bypassing this, in some refrigerators, it might actually turn on the heating coils immediately, which then you could know, oh, the heating coils don't work. But Look up stuff on your specific refrigerator on instructions, because that could vary. I'm not a licensed technician. This is just in my experience and my opinion. But back on track about recycling. We're constantly told to recycle. But the reality of it is, if any of your cardboard is contaminated with oil or grease, it can't be recycled. The plastics, because there's so many different types of plastics, you can't recycle plastics without having excess chemical or residual chemicals from the recycling process. Since all these plastic containers are different chemical formulations, you can't have one thing just dissolve them all and work with that. Everyone requires something different. So they would actually have to separate them by different type of plastic to do. And the amount of residual waste would probably exceed what you tried to recycle. And also on recycling, there's a difference between recycling and grinding something up and mixing it with like a glue to make plastic wood, sort of like they do with that Trek stuff. They grind up existing plastic, put it together, put a glue sort of thing, and that can have good or bad effects. If some of the plastic you use as the recycling part is plastic that is susceptible to UV rays, then that could break into something different while still remaining unusable. In a Trex board, they had an issue where a bunch of the boards had a powdery coating on it that would develop over time because of exposure to the sun. That's not a good thing. So that was not, to me, true recycling. To me, true recycling would be taking a plastic and it breaks back down into the plastic that can be then reused again as the same plastic. But now it has to mix with stuff, and they can only do that like once or twice at the most. So that's not true recycling. And now the trash company is telling us that if our lid is open slightly, they could actually fine us on stuff they're going to throw in a landfill probably. So, yeah, that's why it's sort of deceptive to me.